To make your jewelry creations truly unique, make your own colorful glass beads. Let's fire up the torch to create one-of-a-kind beads today on Beads, Baubles, and Jewels. I'm here with Tammy Rae Wolter. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you very much.
So great to have you.
Very nice
you make
to be here.
beautiful glass beads with a special type of glass.
Yes, the glass that I use is called Borosilicate, and it is different from the Italian glass, which you might hear referred to as Moretti or Murano glass. The melting point is different. This is quite a bit higher, close to 3,000 degrees, whereas that's under 1,500.
So that requires a heavier duty torch.
Yes, a bigger torch, dual fuel, so there's oxygen and propane running the fuel. These different controls control those different gases that come through.
Okay, and there are some safety precautions that we want to be sure to take too when we're thinking about doing lamp working at home.
Right. Here in the studio, we've covered the table with metal so that if any hot glass goes on it, it won't start any fires. And you always want to have your fire extinguisher nearby. And at home, there are other issues to consider, like ventilation is really important. So if you're interested in getting into lamp working, you can learn on your own, but taking a class is a really good way to start.
All right, and we're going to get our feet wet today with you here on the show, so that'll be great.
Yes.
And one thing that we did too is we stashed the tanks outside, and we also want to be sure that we're working over a concrete floor.
Yes, that's very important. Glass is something that it kind of does what it does, but once you've gotten some experience, you can control a lot of things.
And so with the ventilation, you said putting a fan in a window is not quite enough once you get more serious about it.
It's never enough. You always want to make sure you have some overhead ventilation, removing, even there's some fumes that come off of your torch, just like your gas stove. You'll have a ventilation for that, so you especially want it for glass, just to save your health, your lungs. The other issue is your eye protection, and what I use, I'm wearing my regular glasses, but my eye protection for my glass is this screen that has what's called didymium glass. A lot of people wear, like what is on the table, these glasses called didymium glasses, and it keeps the flare from damaging your eyes, because like you're going to be fine today watching for just a short period of time, but if you were going to do hours of torching to protect your eyes, you have to have those didymium lenses. It's required.
Okay. All right. And so are there any other things that we need to know about getting started?
We can talk about...
Let's talk a little bit about your tools.
Sure. Some of the tools, I have a way to light my torch with a tool like this that will light it. And then what we're going to make the bead on is a mandrel. And that's what gives you the hole. So some people are like, how do you get the hole in there? Do you drill it? No, you start with a mandrel. And the mandrel is a stainless steel, or just not stainless steel, but a steel rod, welding rod perhaps. And what you do to prepare it is, if you make your bead right on that rod, it won't come off. And we call those pot stickers. Oh, okay. That if the bead doesn't come off, you still like it, it's lovely, and you just stick it in a pot with a plant, and you have a little pot sticker. So, and I have this lovely little mandrel holder, but you dip it like that. I usually dip my mandrels the night before, so they're all set to go and dry. So we'll work with these dried ones, but this is an example of a mandrel that's just been dipped. Okay. So it's as simple as that.
All right, very good. So what is the first thing that we need to know to get started?
Probably want to get our torch lit.
Okay.
So should we just melt some glass?
Let's do it.
Should we do that? Okay. In lighting your torch, you always start with the propane, and you turn it on just a little bit, get it going. And then you add the oxygen, and that's the controller over here. And oxygen is always in green, and propane is in red. Get it going. I have a wonderful torch called a GTT Mirage, and it has a second controller for oxygen, which helps you narrow it down a little bit to create a nice focused flame.
Oh, wow.
So, in order for the glass to stick to the mandrel has to be warm. So, you want to warm it in the flame a little further out. If you take it in too close, the bead release may pop off, and then you need to get a different mandrel. So, the particular glass I'm using for this bead is called a striking glass. And striking glass is very magical. It is not a what you see is what you get kind of a glass. What I did is I warmed the glass, and I touched it to the mandrel and started rolling the mandrel away from me. Now I'm just rolling the mandrel back and forth in the flame so that the glass melts evenly. And if your glass goes on unevenly, you just keep rolling the mandrel back and forth, and it'll work itself into a round bead. I always tell my students your 1000th bead will be nice and round.
Right.
So when you're first starting out, don't worry about it. Yep. So Boro glass very often is covered with clear, which is called clear encasing. So I have the color I started with, which you can see is like a really light pale yellow. I'm warming the clear while this one's kind of hanging out by the flame. It's a hard glass. Boro is very hard. You don't have to worry about it cracking off like Moretti or Italian. It's a very hardy, strong glass. So I'm clear encasing with a couple rolls of clear. Then you just melt it off and pull it off. And, well, that was exciting.
Yeah.
A little bit of extra
There we go.
fun here. Normally my didymium is back on this side of my marver, and I forgot. So we're going to roll back and forth and get our clear glass totally encasing that first amber purple color that I used.
Okay. And it comes in a lot of different colors, and also one thing that's special about Boro is the color is kind of magical, right?
Yes, many Boro colors are called striking colors. And a striking glass is one, there are a high level of metals in it, either copper or silver. And when you're working with the glass and you subject it to varied temperatures, like it's really hot right now, like around 3,000 degrees. The striking glass, I'm going to take it out of the flame, and I'm going to just continue rolling it until we don't see a glow anymore. And the color of the glass will be sort of almost clear with a slight tinge of yellow. So we're waiting for the glow to go, and then toward the end, when it looks like the glow is just about gone, it's not. And so when I'm at home, and you're probably not going to be able to see this on camera today, but I hold it like below the table in a darker area just until the rest of it's gone. So you can see it looks like it's about gone, but it's not.
So you hold it down and
But
just
if you
check
see,
it
you
out.
can hold it down here. It's still losing its glow.
And you continually rotate it to maintain that shape, right? Because
Yes.
it's still hot.
Yes. Okay, so you can see it's sort of a milky kind of a color. So here's where the magic happens.
Okay.
When you reintroduce it to the outer part of the flame, keep rotating. The rotation is not so important now. The glass is really very hard. And so you don't have to worry about it losing its shape. It is the shape that it's going to be. But as you can see,
Oh, there it's starting to warm.
the color is changing, and this color is a really special when it goes from these amber colors. When you keep going, it'll go to purple.
Wow.
And if this is like the holy grail of borosilicate glass, the amber purple colors, and there's a spectrum. There's blue amber purple, green amber purple. This one's just called amber purple, and you can see there's some kind of milky wisps in there. You can control that also, and it creates some like lightning bolts in certain
wow,
beads.
yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
like you can see the different ones. And in bright light, like that one's a little more milky than what I would normally want it to be, and there's a haze that gets burned off. But it's still, they're all pretty beads.
Definitely.
And that's one thing about being a bead artist, is that you have to be careful that you don't say, oh, I don't really like that bead, because a customer will come along and they love it. They think
Right,
it's
they
very
fall in love with
interesting. Normally I would have put my bead immediately into my kiln.
Yes, it's very important to have your kiln afterward, right?
Yes, and my kiln sets at a temperature, it's called my garage temp. It's at about 960 degrees, and it's all day while I'm working, and I just continue putting beads in there. And what the importance is that the glass, when that bead is finished, and I just have it in a fiber blanket, and it'll be fine. I can actually anneal that bead when I get home because it's borosilicate. It'll travel back. I can anneal it, and it'll still be a good bead.
Okay.
The annealing takes the glass, when it came out of the flame, the inner part closest to the mandrel had started to cool very rapidly because of the metal rod that's in the middle, but the outer part was still around 3,000 degrees at the melting point.
Right.
It's all stressed and very unhappy. So you put it in the kiln brings it all to an even temp all the way through. Then at the end of my day, I'll ramp it up. I have a little electronic computer controller on the kiln. It's really cool. You can set it for all different kinds of settings. And I'll ramp it up to around 1050 is the most common temperature that I use. Hold it for about an hour, unless I'm doing something really large, and then maybe longer. And then it will gradually cool. And so the glass is at the same temp, and then it gradually cools, so it's all even, and it's very stress-free and very strong, which is great for jewelry, especially rings and bracelets.
Anything you're
if you
wearing,
impact, it's really strong.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. You definitely want to anneal it.
Yes.
And so how long do you leave it in the blanket before you're putting it in the kiln?
At home, I wouldn't use the
You would just
blanket.
put it right into
I
the
have
kiln.
my kiln is
Got
sitting
it.
right here. I open the little door and I put it in.
Got it.
So it's it works out really well. So.
Okay, well, we have time to make one more.
Yes, this one's going to be a unique piece. Keys are really popular in jewelry right now, and so some bead artists have been making beads right on keys.
Yes, I love
which is
this
really
look.
fun.
It's so pretty.
So what you have to do is you take your key, and that has to be dipped in bead release. Some people will do them directly on the key, but what happens is you have a expansion factor when things are cooling, and if the glass is right on the metal, it's going to break over time. Maybe not immediately, but eventually that glass is going to crack off. So if you could hand me that styrofoam block, this is my very highly technical piece of equipment that I use to dry my keys. So I just wanted to demonstrate drying that. I'm going to grab one that has already been dipped, because you can put that back, thank you.
Sure.
I dip the keys the night before. Sometimes with regular mandrels like this, you can dip and dry it in the flame, but for keys, I always make sure that they dry overnight.
Well, and by having the bead release on there too, it lets the bead slide around
Exactly.
once it's finished.
So then, and thank you, because I needed to finish that thought. When the bead is sliding, it's not stuck on the metal, which means the bead's going to last for you. So if you could hand me this tool right here.
Sure.
This is something that my husband created for me.
Nice.
And in order to make a bead on a key, you have to have a way to turn it so that it's not like, let's say it's going like this, your bead will never be round.
You want it to be a mandrel.
And this is one of those fun little clamps from just Office Supply. And the nice thing about this too, and there are some different tools available online that will help you hold your key. But most of them, it's on there with a nut and a bolt. And you take this whole thing and put it in your kiln, and so you have to have all these different to make a bunch of keys. This one, when I'm done, surprisingly, this stays pretty cool, so I can just grab it and do another one. So let's get fired up again. So again, first we turn on our propane, and then we add our oxygen slowly. And for a beginner, this is always the scariest part. It's like you think you're going to blow something up by lighting your kiln, and you don't, or lighting your torch.
Well, anything takes practice.
Yes.
And this season we've been talking a lot about jewelry that you can make tonight and wear tomorrow. And of course this is something that is a process, a much longer process, but I think it gives people a really wonderful idea of how to wear them too.
Yes.
Thinking about lampwork beads in your jewelry.
Right. And again, the metal has to be warm. So I'm going to slowly warm this. I don't want the bead release to jump off. We do have some backups in case we need them, and this glass this is called Aqua Azul, and as you can see, the keys will start to smoke a little bit. Aqua Azul is a wonderful, creamy, doesn't boil real easy, just a great glass all around. Some people call it the best boral glass we have, and it's a really great glass to work with. So I want a nice gather of glass on the end of my rod, and I'm going to touch it on the key and then quickly start rotating the key away from me so that the glass starts adhering to the key in an even manner. So I'm going to touch it and start rolling away. And it's really important that your flame is focused on the glass and not on the key. If you focus too much on the key, you're going to melt your key in half. And that's true of a mandrel. So
there you go.
So the glass is on there. This again, I'm going to be really careful just to focus on the glass and get that melted into a round bead. And if you're noticing, this is a little slower to melt. Boral glass is all made to go together, but the the amount of time it takes to melt some of the different colors varies.
Well, and I imagine that takes some just experience in practicing with the different colors.
It does. It does. And a lot of my students are soft glass experts. They're just really good at it. And there's a number of differences between the glass that I find interesting. One of them is a glass that's transparent like this in Boro moves very quickly when you put it in the flame. That was the first one I used for that first bead. And in soft glass, the glass that's like that, that you can see through, that's translucent, it's the more stubborn glass. Whereas our opaque glass that you can't see through, which is what I'm working with, is slow, and it's like working with taffy. You know, you're pulling, you know, you have a lot of time. And in soft glass, this is your quick melting type, which I found that kind of interesting.
It is.
So before you do your clear encasement, which you don't have to do, but in Boro, it's sort of a tradition to always encase in clear. It gives you sort of that optical lens that you're looking through that just creates some magical things on the glass. But you want that first color to be melted in to be pretty much the shape you want it to end up being.
Yeah.
And this bead is not perfectly round, so we're going to call it an organically shaped bead.
There you go, organically shaped bead.
Yes, it's very organic. So we're going to add some clear.
All right. So we've made 2 beads in under 15 minutes. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And there's a bead I'm wearing. It's under my apron, but it took me about 20 minutes to make. So, and there's some glass artists that are, it's so cool. They'll take an hour to make a single bead, and that's quite amazing. You get a little sore up here because you're like this for so long. A little fun fact while this is melting, one of the major glass part for the Hubble telescope was made with Boro, and it annealed for a year.
Oh my goodness.
So this bead is just about done.
All right.
And when it's all done, we'll put it in the kiln and anneal it, and you'll be able to just throw a chain on it and wear it.
Oh good, well let's take a look at your finished pieces too so that we can see these beautiful beads as we wait for this to melt.
It's not quite finished, but it's melted enough to the point when it cools, it's going to turn a lovely teal. Take it off with the tweezers and you put it right
in your fiber blanket. All right, well, I think everyone's going to try to make some beads after this, don't you?
Very good. Yes, it's fun. Everyone should try it.